Today is Saturday, September 9th, 2023, and this is the Dunkley Report. It's never been easy for the leaders of the world's largest economies to find common ground, but Russia's war on Ukraine has made it even harder for the Group of 20 meeting to reach meaningful agreements this year. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, this year's host, has pledged Ukraine won't overshadow his focus on the needs of developing nations in the so-called Global South, but the war has proved hard to ignore. Russia and China have blocked attempts at a final communiqué over objections to phrasing on Ukraine. Ending the summit without a communiqué would underscore how strained relations are among the world's major powers. A Russian missile attack on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown has killed one policeman and wounded at least 73 people, including 9 policemen. It was among multiple Russian attacks across the country on Friday. Officials say 10 buildings were damaged in the attack on Kryvyi Rih. Ukraine's Minister of Internal Affairs says 3 people pulled out of the rubble are in serious condition. He posted photos on Telegram showing a building on fire and emergency services evacuating the casualties. Ukraine's Interior Minister said 3 people were also killed on Friday when a Russian bomb struck the village of Odradokamyanka in the Kherson region of southern Ukraine. Women's rights activists in Latin America have long looked to the United States as a model in their decades-long struggle to chip away at abortion restrictions in their highly religious countries. A historic Mexican Supreme Court ruling decriminalizing abortion on the federal level has prompted some to say U.S. activists should turn to their counterparts south of the border as they navigate a post-Roe v. Wade reality. Since the 1980s, women's rights activists in Argentina, Mexico, and other Latin American countries have little by little chipped away at laws restricting abortion. Now, Latin America is in the midst of a green wave, as those countries like Mexico roll back restrictions. At the same time, new barriers are going up in the U.S. Women's rights activists in Latin America have long looked to the United States as a model in their decades-long struggle to chip away at abortion restrictions in their highly religious countries. A historic Mexican Supreme Court ruling decriminalizing abortion on the federal level has prompted some to say U.S. activists should turn to their counterparts south of the border as they navigate a post-Roe v. Wade reality. Since the 1980s, women's rights activists in Argentina, Mexico, and other Latin American countries have little by little chipped away at laws restricting abortion. Now, Latin America is in the midst of a green wave, as those countries like Mexico roll back restrictions. At the same time, new barriers are going up in the U.S. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged the Group of 20 top economic powers to use their weekend summit to send a strong message on climate change. G20 nations are responsible for more than 80% of the emissions that cause global warming. Guterres said Friday that all licensing or funding for new fossil fuel projects should be stopped, and that the G20 must keep the 1.5-degree goal alive. He was referring to the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement that set 1 degrees Celsius as a global guardrail in atmospheric warming. The UN Weather Agency has said that there's a 2 out of 3 chance that the world will temporarily hit a key warming limit within the next 5 years. The death toll from severe flooding in central Greece has increased to 10 people, while another 4 remain missing. Greece's climate crisis and civil protection minister says, as rescue crews in helicopters and boats are ferrying hundreds of people from inundated villages to safety. Flooding triggered by rainstorms that began Tuesday also hit neighboring Bulgaria and Turkey, killing a total of 22 people in all three countries since the rains began on Tuesday. Severe rainstorms in Greece turned streams into raging torrents that burst dams, washed away roads and bridges, and hurled cars into the sea. Authorities said that some areas received twice the average annual rainfall for Athens in the space of just 12 hours. Turkish officials say rescue crews are waiting for doctors to give the go-ahead for an operation to move out an American researcher who fell ill more than 3,000 feet below the entrance of a cave. Disaster relief official Recep Salci told the AP on Friday that the operation could last up to 10 days, depending on his health condition. Experienced caver Mark Dickey fell ill with stomach bleeding during an expedition in the Morka Cave in southern Turkey's Taurus Mountains. Rescuers from across Europe have rushed there for an operation to save him. Rescuers believe Dickey will need to stop and rest frequently during the ascent. Cuban authorities have arrested 17 people in connection with what they described as a network to recruit Cuban nationals to fight for Russia in Ukraine. The head of criminal investigations for Cuba's Interior Ministry, Cesar Rodriguez, said late on Thursday on state media that at least 3 of the 17 arrested are part of recruitment efforts inside the island country. He didn't identify the alleged members of the network and only said that they had previous criminal records. Cuba's foreign ministry said Monday the government had detected a network operating from Russia to recruit some of Cuba's citizens living both in Russia and in Cuba to fight in Ukraine. The United Nations has doubled down on its pledge to revive stalled negotiations over the disputed Western Sahara in a visit to the region this week, in which its top negotiator met with officials on all sides. UN envoy Staffan de Mistura made his first visit to the disputed territory this week. He toured its 2 largest cities. De Mistura met with officials in Morocco's capital on Friday. The United Nations said in a statement that it planned to publish a report to the Security Council next month. The developments come after decades of stalled negotiations were upended after the United States reversed its long-standing policy and recognized Morocco's claim to the region under President Donald Trump. The Supreme Court is being asked to reverse an appellate ruling that would cut off mail-order access to a drug used in the most common method of abortion in the United States. The case would be the first major abortion dispute decided by the Supreme Court since its ruling overturning Roe v. Wade last year, which has led to bans on abortion in 14 states. In the appeal filed Friday, Danco Laboratories, the manufacturer of mifepristone, argues that federal judges should not second-guess the Food and Drug Administration's approval of the drug, mifepristone. The Supreme Court is widely expected to agree to hear the case. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Saturday, September 9th, 2023. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report